All right, Mr. Chairman, we are live.
Good evening and welcome to the Zoning Board of Appeals, March 16th virtual special meeting. I'm Angelo DiMatteo, Chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals. For the record, I'd like to note that the required meeting agenda and application materials are all available on the town website. This meeting is being conducted in a virtual format in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act as amended by Public Act number 21-2, which authorizes municipalities to conduct a public meetings virtually. Will the zoning enforcement officer please call the roll?
Michael D'Amato,
Here.
Todd Doyle,
Here.
Angelo DiMatteo,
Here.
Michael Johnson,
Here.
John Harris, Bob LaChance, Carolyn Borman,
Here.
and Kristen Levesque.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. McGillipin. For the record, we would like to note we do have a full quorum. Commission members and town staff are participating via WebEx. Members of the public can view the meeting live on West Hartford Community Television at www.whctv.org, as well as YouTube/WHCTV5. The meeting is also being recorded for on-demand viewing and will be available on the town's website for at least 45 days. I'd like to outline for all the attendees rules of engagement and how the commission operates a public hearing. Those presenting or commenting should state their name and address, and for the record, please spell your name. Commissioners may ask questions during the testimony of the applicant. All questions and comments will be directed through the chair and only after recognition by the chair, including follow-ups. Following the testimony of the applicant, the public will have a chance to comment about the current application. Upon conclusion of the public comments, the applicant will have an opportunity to address any opinions expressed. Upon conclusion of the applicant's rebuttal, and if there are no further questions, commissioners, the public hearing portion will be closed. In practice, the commission renders a decision on the application the same night following all items on the public meeting agenda. I'd like to conclude by thanking everyone in advance for your patience. And with that, will the zoning enforcement officer please read the first legal notice?
Chair, prior to the first legal notice, can we continue the Bishop Road item?
Yes, okay. I'd like to make a motion to move item 0922 to next month's meeting, April 20th.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Michael D'Amato,
Yes.
Todd Doyle,
Yes.
Angelo DiMatteo,
Yes.
Michael Johnson,
Yes.
and Carolyn Borman.
Yes.
That passes.
Great.
And I will now read the legal notice. The Town of West Hartford Zoning Board of Appeals will hold its regular virtual meeting at 6:00 p.m. on Wednesday, March 16th, 2022. The public hearing and meeting will be conducted exclusively in a format in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act as amended by Public Act number 21-2, which authorizes municipalities to conduct public meetings virtually and will convene at 6:00 p.m. as the matter may be heard on the following. Petition number 08-22, 51 Brookside Boulevard, petition of M Town Junior League of Hartford, requesting a variance to section 177-6, schedule of permitted accessory uses, to use the property as a decorator show house for 3 weeks as a fundraising project per plans on file, R13 zone. At this hearing, interested persons may be heard or submit written communication as outlined below. The full application is available for public review by visiting the town's website and following this navigation path, Government tab, Boards and Commissions, Zoning Board of Appeals, and next meeting and agenda, or by email request to comment.tpz@westhartfordct.gov. Virtual meeting viewing instructions. Members of the public can view the meeting live on YouTube at youtu.be/HQ4FNFHC or on West Hartford Community Television at hctv.org and YouTube/WHCTV5. The meeting is also being recorded for on-demand viewing and will be available on the town's website for at least 45 days. Audio comment. Any interested persons may participate in real time by calling 1-408-418-9388 and using the following access code 2339-534-9908 at 6 o'clock p.m. Participants using caller ID blocking will not be permitted to participate. Participants will be called on in the order in which their call was received. When prompted by the chair and/or moderator, participants will have the permission to speak on matters germane to the hearing. Written comment. Any interested persons may submit a written comment via email to comment.tpz@westhartfordct.gov or via mail. Attention, Town Plan and Zoning Office, Room 214, Town Hall, 50 South Main Street, West Hartford, Connecticut, 06107. Written comments will be made part of the record at the March 16th, 2022 public hearing and posted on the town's website. In order to be included as part of the record, comments must meet the following requirements. Comments must be received no later than 3:30 p.m. on March 16th. The subject of the email shall be application number and address, ZBA March 16th public hearing. Body of the email must begin with the interested person's full name and street address. Comments must be germane to the application and no longer than 500 words. Angelo DiMatteo, Chairperson of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and Brittany McGilpin, Secretary to the Board. And I
Great,
just
thank
would
you.
also like to note for the record that signs have been posted at this property and abutter letters were mailed to direct abutters.
Thank you, Brittany. As mentioned, the public was provided an opportunity to submit written comments on the application via mail or email. Any comments received have been published on the town's website as a PDF and are embedded in the online agenda. With that, will the applicant please proceed with the presentation?
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Evan Seaman. I'm a lawyer at Robinson & Cole. Can you hear me all right? Thank you. So I'm here this evening on behalf of the applicant, Junior League of Hartford. And I'd just like to introduce two people also joining me this evening from Junior League. First is Molly Town and also Whitney Sweeney. And they are past presidents of Junior League. And they're also co-chairs of the 2022 Show House event. And the Show House event is the proposed use that is part of this variance application before you this evening. So I wanted to first just provide a quick overview of our presentation. We'll provide a summary of the application, the site, and some history. But before we get into those details, I thought it would be helpful for the board. I'm sure some members of the board are familiar with Junior League, but there might be some who are not. So I thought it would first be helpful for Molly and or Whitney to explain what Junior League is and also what the Show House event is. So Molly, could you please address those two topics?
Sure. Thanks for having us on tonight. For those of you who don't know, the Junior League of Hartford is a non-for-profit organization servicing the greater Hartford community. Our mission is to empower young girls, women and young girls. We have approximately 350 members, and we are celebrating our 100th year. Our organization is dedicated to promoting volunteerism, developing the potential of women, and improving communities through the effective action and leadership of trained volunteers. What our show house is basically decorators and designers come in and they take over a house for 18 days and we sell tickets. And it's our largest fundraiser. It happens every 3 years, and all the funds from the projects go back to the greater Hartford community. Since its inception, our show houses have raised over $1.6 million. It's our signature project that we do, and we are currently partnered with the Boys and Girls Club of Hartford, where we're able to give them monetary grants to fund their Smart Girls program, and we provide volunteers to lead the program for young girls. We simultaneously send volunteers out throughout the year to work on numerous other community projects. This is our 15th show house, and it was originally supposed to be in 2021, but due to the pandemic, we had to push it out a year. We couldn't hold it. In the last few years, we've also made some other fiscally responsible decisions to really decrease our overhead. We closed the Clothes Horse, which was our thrift shop on Park Road. We moved to a smaller office, and ultimately we closed our office this year. The majority of the funds that we raise from the show house go directly back into the community. And without this fundraiser, we're not able to continue our programming and projects. In 2018, about 2,700 people visited the show house, and it would be open June 3rd through June 26th for a total of 18 days. It's open Wednesday through Friday, 11 to 3 and 5 to 8 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. And on Mondays and Tuesdays, the house is closed.
Thank you, Molly. So after consultation with planning staff, Junior League decided to submit this application for a variance, and it's seeking a variance of the schedule of permitted accessory uses, which is attachment 2 in the zoning ordinance, and specifically number 9 in that table. And the reason that section is the subject of this variance application is because charitable accessory uses in residential zones are limited to 3 days duration. So this application is proposing to expand the number of days for that event. And this variance would be a temporary variance. It would expire at the conclusion of the show house event. Junior League consents to that as a proposed condition of approval, and I'll get into the proposed conditions of approval in just a bit. But first, I wanted to talk about the property itself, which is 51 Brookside Boulevard. It's off of North Main Street. It's not too far from the American School for the Deaf. It's in the R13 zoning district and surrounded by other properties in residential zones. And it's an oddly shaped lot. It actually looks like a shark tooth. The rear part of the parcel is actually part of Trout Brook itself. And due to these site features, the property isn't large enough to accommodate the number of people, particularly outside for the 3 days for this show house event. So by approving a temporary variance to allow the accessory event to be held for more than 3 days would permit minimization to any adverse effects that might otherwise result, including traffic and parking concerns. And there's actually precedent for this particular variance. In 2005, the Zoning Board of Appeals actually issued Junior League a variance for this exact event. And that variance proposed, that it was also with respect to the schedule of permitted accessory uses. That property was 9 West Hill Drive in West Hartford. And it also proposed a similar 3-week period of events for the show house. But that event in 2000, it actually occurred in 2006. That event was for 6 days a week. Here, the show house event proposed during this 3-week period is only for 5 days a week. Show house would be closed on Monday and Tuesday, and we'll get into the schedule in just a bit. So the ZBA unanimously approved that variance application. In 2005, it made the following findings. 1, granting of the variance is in harmony with the purpose and intent of West Hartford's Code of Ordinances. And then 2, the ZBA really honed in on conditions of approval that Junior League had agreed to in connection with that variance. And those conditions are part of the record here. So is the decision letter approving that variance from 2005. Those are linked documents to the agenda. So the conditions of approval here that I mentioned as part of this application that Junior League is proposing are even more expansive than the conditions that were issued with the 2005 variance approval. So I wanted to go over those conditions of approval. And Brittany, is it possible to bring those up on the screen for members to follow?
Yes, I think you have the ability to share your screen in the bottom of your.
I've never shared on WebEx before, so let me give it a shot. Is everyone able to see that?
Yep.
Great. So this is from the narrative that was provided with the application. It's also linked to the agenda. So these are proposed conditions of approval for your consideration. And first, as I mentioned, the variance is only of limited duration. It will expire on June 27th, 2022. The event concludes the day before. Hours of operation, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 11 to 3 p.m. and then 5 to 8 p.m. With a 2-hour break in between from 3 to 5, and then Saturday and Sunday, 11 to 5. And as I mentioned, it's completely closed Monday and Tuesday. Next, upon the conclusion of a special event, Junior League will promptly complete all cleanup and closing activities. Junior League will endeavor to complete these activities by 10 p.m., meaning that the site is quiet and dark at this time. And there are only 3 special events, and those are scheduled for April 29th, June 3rd, and June 17th. The June 3rd event is the opening ceremony. The April 29th event, I believe, is the Bare Bones event. And the June 17th event, I believe, is a Father's Day event or a happy hour event. The next proposed condition, at no time during the show house shall the passage of vehicles or pedestrians on any road or driveway on Brookside Boulevard, Drive, and Place be obstructed by vehicles, equipment, materials, or otherwise related to show house. If such obstruction should occur, the West Hartford Police Department will take appropriate action. And that's a condition of approval that was imposed as part of the 2005 variance approval. Similarly, at no time during show house will emergency vehicle access in and around Brookside Boulevard, Drive, or Place be obstructed by vehicles, equipment, or materials related to show house. And again, if there's any obstruction, the West Hartford Police Department will take appropriate action. The next one relates to parking. So during show house, specific areas selected, see parking map, and there's a parking map that is part of the file. Within the Brookside area will be posted by the Junior League as no parking areas. Parking will be prohibited along the north side of Brookside Boulevard for approximately 40 feet from the intersection with Brookside Place to provide better visibility. And I should note that these 2 conditions of approval, which are proposed, were at the suggestion of the town engineer, Greg Somner, who reviewed the proposed parking map and provided these comments. Next, at no time will vehicles or equipment drive upon or materials be placed upon any privately owned property other than the show house property. And the next 3 proposed conditions of approval really relate to public outreach. So Junior League will maintain a website and a calendar for the show house fundraiser. It will maintain a phone number for any resident in the Brookside Boulevard neighborhood to contact Junior League with any comments, questions, or concerns. And Junior League will maintain an open dialogue and will meet with residents as necessary should the need arise. So now I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I mentioned that the town engineer reviewed the parking plan and this proposal. The West Hartford Police Department also reviewed. Lieutenant Peter Judah reviewed this on March 4th. And he stated that based on his review of the proposed location and historical data, he didn't believe that the event would adversely affect calls for police service. His biggest concern was emergency vehicle access for homes on the street. And as I just mentioned, that has been included as a proposed condition of approval with this application. The other important point to note about the review of Lieutenant Judah and Mr. Somner is that they both stated that neighborhood outreach would be very important. And this is something that Junior League has taken very seriously. They've really gone above and beyond when it comes to public outreach. And I think, better than me trying to explain their efforts, I think it would be a good segue for Molly to explain all the outreach that Junior League has conducted with respect to this 2022 Show House event.
We have. Whitney and I have gone door to door to the 50 homes on Brookside Boulevard, Brookside Place, and Fulton Place. We spoke to anyone that answered their door, and anyone that wasn't home received a letter from the Junior League of Hartford with background about the show house and our contact information. And a copy of that letter and background document was included with our application for all of you to view. To date, we have not heard any negative feedback from our door-to-door experience or via email from anyone in the neighborhood. We have included with our application letters of support from many neighbors supporting this event. And as noted in our application, we've been in touch with the West Hartford Police Department, and they've reviewed and not found any issues either.
Thank you. And right now, if the members of the board have any questions, we'd be happy to entertain them. But I think this otherwise would be a good stopping point for us. If you'd like to open it up to public comment, and we do have some additional remarks to make after public comment, but nothing more right now.
Thank you. I do have a question just on the number of people visiting the location during the day. It says here in your application, are you expecting 100? Is that 100 individuals total per day?
So we based that number off of our numbers from 2018. And it would break down roughly about 100 people a day, maybe a little bit more, 100, 110 people a day. And those were based on the numbers from the last show house in 2018.
And you expect to take up 10 to 15 parking spaces? Is that?
Yeah, we had marked it on the map. We had marked it from 51 down to 17 going towards North Main. And then from 36 Brookside Boulevard up until about 44 Brookside Boulevard. So
And just and you shared these numbers with the West Hartford PD and the town engineer, just in going through your planning and recommendations from them.
I believe that they received. Yeah, I believe that they were given all of the information that we had.
Yep.
The same information that same right, Brittany. I think that
Yep,
they.
Chair DeMaio, this is Brittany McGilpin, zoning enforcement officer. I forwarded on the Junior League's application to both the engineering division and the police department for comment. And they provided those comments that have been posted on the agenda.
Commissioners, I'll open up to you if anyone has any comments, questions.
I have a follow-up parking question.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Levesque,
Thank you.
if it's okay, that I saw that 10 to 15 at a time in the parking plan that you submitted. I just had a question about the special events. There's 3 special events. I believe it's mentioned that you might shuttle people in. I just wanted to know if you could explain how that might work.
So our plan would be really just for opening night. That is our largest event that we'll have on June 3rd. And our plan is to use the Universalist Church on Fern Street in West Hartford to shuttle people to the house. They would park there and we would shuttle them over.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Doyle. Through the chair, I have a question for Brittany. Brittany, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't the 2018 show house in West Hartford? And
Yep, there was a 2015 show house in West Hartford and a 2018 show house in West Hartford.
oh, okay. And the reason I bring that up is just because I don't recall having seen applications in 2015 and 2018, and I'm wondering if that was just an oversight perhaps in those years, or if this situation is different from the situations in 15 and 18.
Right. So through my research, the last approval I found that the town provided
West
was
Hill?
in 2005 for
Yeah.
the West Hill application.
Okay. Okay. All right. So maybe I'll address that question through the chair to Mr. Seaman. Do you know what the reason was that there was no variance applications in 15 and
Sure.
18?
Yeah, sure. And Molly can correct me if I'm wrong, but as you mentioned, I believe it was an oversight. There was a 9-year gap between the 2006 event and then the subsequent event in West Hartford. So, different leadership and it just wasn't something that was done. It should have been done. And, we honestly, they just did not know at the time that they needed to seek a variance application for that. And if they knew, they would have done that. But
Yeah, and I don't mean to, I'm not trying to bust anyone's chops. I'm just wondering if this event is proposed to be that much more significant than the 15 or 18 events, or, okay. All right, that
Nope,
answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just had a question on the public safety report from Lieutenant Judah. The only concern that seemed to be raised, and I know that was mentioned in Attorney Seaman's presentation, was maintaining access for the emergency vehicles. Would the applicant just mind outlining what the plan is to make sure that that accessible way is going to be preserved?
So this is Evan Seaman for the record. So we will work with the West Hartford Police Department to determine that, and whatever they suggest be done is going to be done. Nothing set in stone right now, but we'll fully work with the West Hartford Police Department to make sure that issue is addressed.
Great, thank you.
This is Chair DiMatteo. Brittany, is there any discussion with council regarding liability or anything that could come back to the town from the event?
This has been reviewed with the Corporation Council. It really is the conditions of approval that are tied to this application. The fact that they addressed staff concerns really reduce, the town's risk, especially that it expires, after the event. I think all of that kind of, reduces the overall risk that the town has with this application.
So, Mr. Seaman, is there like a hold harmless agreement that you have with the town? Has that ever been discussed?
To my knowledge, it has not been discussed. At least I haven't been part of any discussions with respect to that. So I can't speak to that right now. If it is a concern, we're certainly willing to work with the town and Corporation Council on that.
Yeah, I think, Brittany, maybe we could talk about that and see if it's a concern with legal counsel for the town and let them decide, right?
Yes, I'll reach out to Corporation Council to make sure, it is private property, so
Right.
it is their responsibility. I'll definitely bring that up.
The Junior League of Hartford does take out full insurance coverage, like we add it to all of our insurance for the house and the property. So I don't know if that makes a difference at all.
Yeah, we could add the town as an additional
Sure.
insured onto that policy for the 18 days for that event. Probably just if anything comes back to the town, we would turn it over to your policy. That stems from the event. That's
Right.
all I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Does that sound amenable, Mr. Seaman?
It does. I defer to Molly Town, but it sounds sensible to me.
Commissioners, any other questions or concerns?
I could, if we are adding the town of West Hartford to the insurance policy, we could add that to the conditions of approval as well, just to make sure that if that's agreed upon, that that's what's going to happen.
I think that's a great idea.
Thank you.
That's a condition.
Perfect. Okay, so if we don't have any other comments from commissioners, members of the public were provided an opportunity to send comment via email and are welcome to continue sending comments to comment.tpz@westhartfordct.gov. Those comments will be distributed to the members of the board and also read into the record. For the record, the zoning officer, will you now read any names or anything submitted?
Chair, we had two letters of support submitted, one from a Cheryl Fine and the other from Charlene Bush.
Okay, and both were in favor?
Correct.
Also, the public was provided an opportunity to call in, provide comment to the application. Robert, are there any callers on the line?
Mr. Chairman, so there is 2 call-ins, but we also have a number of video participants. I believe if they could use the hand-raising function, would you like to go through the video participants first or the audio calls?
Let's go through the audio calls.
Okay, one moment. I am now unmuting the number with the 203 area code ending in 25. I believe you have to hit *6 to unmute. I will send the request to unmute now.
Oh, hi, this is Attorney Maria Salato. I am not here on this matter.
Okay, Maria,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am now going to the number with an 860 area code ending in 75. Sending a request to unmute now. I'm going to try to send the request to unmute one more time, and then we can go to video participants. Remember that it is *6 to unmute. That number again has an 860 area code, and the last 2 digits are 75. Mr. Chairman, if it's okay with you, if they unmute, we can go back to them, but I think I saw a Cara DeAngelos who put the hand-raising feature up first. If I will send a request to unmute there.
Great.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Cara DeAngelos, K-A-R-A-D'(Angelos). I am a resident at 41 Fulton Place. I directly back up to homes on Brookside Boulevard, and I'm adjacent to the homes on Brookside Place. So very familiar with the neighborhood as a resident here. I am an active member of the Junior League, as well as the co-chair for the Junior League's Done in a Day Committee, which is our volunteerism activities within the greater Hartford community and with our partners. I'm here today to share my support of this event for all the ideas mentioned as a community member, saying that I do believe that this has benefits and that this is a perfect location for this 18-day duration event. I also wanted to highlight my feeling of appropriateness of this space and our area due to we do have sidewalks here and the pedestrian-friendly nature of the area in which we are. So for folks who will be going to and from the house via the shuttle or via parking in the area as outlined, limited safety concerns there as folks will be able to use sidewalks that we do have here in the neighborhood. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I believe you might have said something, but you were muted. If it's okay,
Yeah,
I'm
forgive
gonna
me.
move.
Thank you, Ms. DeAngelis. Thank you very much. Robert, next person.
Thank you. Chuck Corsi, I'm sending a request to unmute now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Chuck Corsi, and I live at 21 Walbridge Road in West Hartford. And I'm here tonight to speak in favor of the Junior League's application on a couple of different reasons. Junior League has a long history of supporting many nonprofits in the greater Hartford area, including one that's near and dear to my house. I'm a board member of Hartford Interval House, which is working Connecticut's largest agency dedicated to ending domestic and intimate partner violence. I'm not speaking on behalf of Interval House, but I am very appreciative, as I know thousands of people around the greater Hartford area are, for the good work that the Junior League does in raising money for so many worthy causes. I'm also a neighbor of the last show house that was up on West Hill. I live on Walbridge. There were no issues, just an abundance of happy people that were able to see a wonderful house and help support Junior League and the many causes that they support. I also am particularly pleased and grateful that the folks at the Junior League went out of their way and really worked hard to do the right thing, to reach out to their neighbors and let them know what was going on. But more importantly, keep the door open for folks to be able to raise any concerns they might have. That's very important. A lot of times, very worthy events like this, might get derailed because there's confusion or misinformation. And they did the legwork that was necessary, and my hat's off to them for doing that. So it's my hope that the commission will grant their variance and allow them to continue with the good work that they're doing in our community through the show house. Thank you so much for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mr. Corsi. Robert, next person.
Mr. Chairman, those were the only two who used the hand raising feature, and the other number has not tried to unmute that I have seen thus far. So I believe we might be all set with public comment.
Great. Commissioners, any other issues, concerns before we move on to the next applicant? None. Brittany, would you read the next legal notice?
Chair, before moving forward, I just wanted to state that Carolyn Borman will be the alternate that's voting on the 51 Brookside application.
Okay, thank you.
Kristen Levesque will be for the 983 New Brighton Avenue one. And I'll read the legal notice.
Mr. Chairman, may I make just one comment before you move on, please?
Yes, who's speaking?
Evan Seaman.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to note that there were also 7 additional letters of support that were received in response to the outreach efforts. And those are from, those should be also uploaded with the agenda. And those are from neighbors in the immediate vicinity.
Yes, and those have been posted.
Yeah, we've seen those. Yes, they are posted. Thank you, Mr. Seaman.
Are we ready?
Yes.
The Town of West Hartford Zoning Board of Appeals will hold its regular virtual meeting at 6 o'clock on Wednesday, March 16th, 2022. The public hearing and meeting will be conducted exclusively in a format in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act as amended by Public Act number 21-2, which authorizes municipalities to conduct public meetings virtually, will convene at 6:00 p.m. as the matter may be heard on the following. Petition number 05-22, 983 New Britain Avenue. Petition of West Hartford number 1 LLC requesting multiple variances per plans on file to section 177-33 signage, including section 177-33G2A 1A, which limits the size of total attached and freestanding signage for the property, and section 177-33G2A 1D, which limits the size of a freestanding sign for the property. At this hearing, interested persons may be heard or submit written comment or communications as outlined below. The full application is available for public review by visiting the town's website and following the navigation path. Government tab, Boards and Commissions, Zoning Board of Appeals, Next Meeting, and Agenda, or by email request to comment.tpz@westhartfordct.gov. Members of the public can view the meeting live on YouTube at youtu.be/hq4FNFHCM0 or on West Hartford Community Television at whctv.org and YouTube/WHCTV5. The meeting is also being recorded for on-demand viewing and will be available on the town's website for at least 45 days. Any interested persons may participate in real time by calling 1-408-418-9388 and using the following access code 2339-534-9908 at 6:00. Participants using caller ID blocking will not be permitted to participate. Participants will be called on in the order in which their call was received. When prompted by the chair and/or moderator, participants will have the permission to speak on matters germane to the hearing. Any interested persons may submit a written comment via email to comment.tpz@westhartfordct.gov or via mail attention to Town Plan and Zoning Office, Room 214, Town Hall, 50 South Main Street, West Hartford, Connecticut, 06107. Written comments will be made as part of the record at the March 16th, 2022 public hearing and posted on the town's website. In order to be included as part of the record, comments must meet the following requirements. Comments must be received no later than 3:30 p.m. on March 16th. The subject of the email shall be application number and address, ZBA March 16th public hearing. The body of the email must begin with the interested person's full name and street address. Comments must be germane to the application and no longer than 500 words. I'd also like to state for the record that a sign has been posted at the property and the abutter notices have been mailed to direct abutters of the property. Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. As mentioned, the public was provided an opportunity to submit written comments on the application via mail, email. Any comments received have been published on the town's website as a PDF and are embedded on the online agenda. Will the applicant please proceed with the next presentation?
Good evening, members of the board. Thank you very much for your time this evening. At this time, I wanted to quickly also introduce some other people on the call for this application of variance. We have Mr. Joe Sulo, he's the property owner. We have attorney Maria Saludo that represents tenant for Doc Medical, as well as Mr. Peter D'Agostino, who represents the tenant Harbor Freight that is looking to move into the plaza. And a special thank you to the town for hearing us today on this variance request. We're hoping to present what we think is a simple variance request. We ask that you approve a small variance on the plaza's freestanding pylon sign so we can bring this long-standing non-conforming sign to code. In addition, we seek to bring the existing tenant building signs to code and properly display each business name on the directory so that motorists can safely and easily identify the businesses. The hardship here is really that the limited amount of address frontage of the property coupled with the large distance the building set back from the road that a variance is requested. And the variance is needed to bring existing building signs that have long been in place to be compliant as we're working with new tenants that are moving into the building to make sure that their signs are compliant moving forward. As I stated, given the small frontage of the plaza, the number of businesses needing to be identified and the building being set far back from the road, we ask that a variance for a slightly larger than is typically allowed for this building frontage be allowed for the sign. But we're actually seeking to reduce the overall sign that is in place now, because over the years, signs have been strung up in different areas of the existing frontage, adding to the overall signage that's been in place for some time. So we want to bring a new sign to replace this poor existing one, update and add the missing appropriate representation of the tenants. We're requesting that you allow us 100 square feet that is allowed in the town for a freestanding size for properties of this size, and that would properly allow us to display new signage for the businesses moving in. Businesses such as the Salvation Army and urgent care facilities that are very necessary, that motorists driving on this busy road are able to easily identify. So as you can see on the plan submitted, we're asking for a 37 square foot variance on the freestanding pylon. We've submitted a proof of the proposed signage, which, as you can see, measured to what's currently in place and hanging, would actually be reducing what's hanging there now, but bring it to more appropriate, better looking sign that's cleaner, neater, and a better representation that we would want in the town of West Hartford. I was trying to keep it short and sweet.
Thank you very much. So as I understand it, the sign hasn't been in compliant for several years now, right?
Yes. Since the building and property owner, Mr. Sulo, purchased the property, it's been out of compliance, and it's been trouble when new tenants are coming in trying to go through the proper channels of obtaining a permit at the right size and going through the proper channels. What's been happening is some smaller tenants have come in over the years and just added signage and not gone through the process because of the small frontage, coupled with a couple of existing signs in the plaza that are already too large. Like I said, we're trying to bring all this up to date with the small variance that we're asking.
Okay, great. As I look at your exhibits, these are the existing, the storefront signs, exhibits, right? These are the existing sizes that you're recommending to go to?
So if you look at the exhibits presented, we have the measurements and pictures of all the existing signs that are currently in place. There's also a chart that shows the linear footage of the storefront and what would technically be allowed by the zoning of the town of West Hartford and what's there now. And we're not looking to increase any current building sign. What we're looking to do is, like I said, the freestanding pylon sign. Because of the small frontage of the location, it limits the amount that zoning would typically allow for that sign. And we're asking that you allow a variance on that because of the size of the property and the hardship there.
And just so I can clarify, the size of the freestanding sign is based off of the address frontage of the plaza. And so actually half of the street frontage is cut off by a property that was created 977, which is in front of 983 New Britain Avenue. So they don't have that address frontage anymore. That even more restricts the size of the freestanding sign that they are allowed to have.
So Brittany, if I'm understanding you, did that cut down on the available?
Yeah, so right before the property was split off, they would have been allowed 100 square feet for the freestanding sign, but because of how it currently is, they are only allowed, I think it was 63 square feet.
Mr. Miller, you're looking for a variance here for Super Saver, price right there, Salvation Army. Those are the 4 variances you're looking for, the size?
So what we tried to do here, because the freestanding sign is affected by the existing signs that are already in place.
Right.
We tried to articulate the immediate need is for an updated freestanding sign So we've articulated what the variance request is there for the freestanding sign. And at the same time, we're hoping to bring, like I mentioned, the long-standing building signs that have been in place for some of them over a decade, just to code so it doesn't limit other tenants and the freestanding side.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions, concern for Mr. Miller or the others?
Yeah, through the chair,
Yes.
this is Commissioner Doyle. I just have a couple of questions for Mr. Miller, and I'm looking at the exhibits, and I just want to clarify what is what. So if you take a look at page 6 of the exhibit, there's a diagram that shows an outline of a sign, and it says 100 square feet total allowed, 63, or maybe it's 100 square feet total, allowed 63 feet, variance requested 37. So we're dealing there with, it appears, a proposal to have a 100 square foot sign. Maybe that's true, maybe that's not, I don't know. And then it says, it shows in your diagram the immediately preceding page. It shows in the diagram 136 square foot existing sign. So I'm not sure whether it's 100 or 136. And before you answer that, we go to the page 7. If you look at that chart, it says existing building sign square footage 126, proposed sign 126. So I'm not sure, and I'm just trying to clarify, is the sign 100 square feet? Is it 126 square feet, or is it 136 square feet?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Doyle. So if you look at, as you were referencing page 6, directly above that on page 5, this might spell it out a little bit easier. The sign on the left in the illustration is what we're proposing. The sign on the bottom right is what's there existing. You can see a lot of signs added to the bottom in different ways and partially falling apart. So on page 6, the diagram you're seeing is what we're proposing, which is the same that's shown in the illustration on page 5.
Okay.
What we're saying is we're asking for 100 square foot total signage. Because of the small frontage, we're only allowed 63, so the variance requested is 37. When you get down to page 8, we simply documented how much each building signage is now and what it is allowed, as it does affect the amount of signage they're allowed on the pylon.
Okay, except that on page 8, it says the proposed building sign square footage total. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was a total. I'm looking at the Harbor Freight. Okay. All right. But I do have an additional question, which is, if you look at that chart again, the price right sign is 98 and the Super Saver laundromat is 103 and change. And yet when I look at the diagram on page 5, Super Saver laundromat looks real small and price right is much bigger. So do we really need a huge variance for the Super Saver laundromat, or are you not thinking of these in terms of individual signs, as you mentioned before?
I think you might just be missing the header on that document. It's showing the existing building signs that are there. That's not the pylon sign.
Yeah.
That's the existing square footage those tenants are using on their building signs. So to reference what you said, Super Saver or Price Right is allowed 337 square feet. Their building sign right now is 98, and we're only proposing to keep what's there. We're not looking to change it. So
okay, and the Super Saver laundromat, the sign is it's 7.5, I guess, right? It's just that they have that huge sign on the front of their storefront. Is that correct?
There's an existing sign that's been there for over a decade that's way too large, and that's what's throwing that number off for them.
Okay, no, that's helpful. I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Yeah, I apologize if that was not clear.
Thank you, Commissioner Doyle. Any other commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. This is Commissioner Levesque. So through the chair, I have a question about the proposed pylon sign. It appears to me that there are, like, the anchor tenant being Price Right, and then there's 6 other tenants. Yet there's 7 spots. Are you anticipating, can you just clarify for me whether there's another tenant that you're looking to fill that you need the sign area for? my question is because the tenant that you're anticipating that you have listed would be, it would need the variant, you know, has a much larger sign than any of the other tenants, and I just didn't know why we, you know, what the reason would be to kind of have that be so large right away.
Sure, great question, and thank you very much. So going back to that diagram, we are requesting only a total of 100 square feet. Because we want to keep the signs symmetrical, you have to do that in, you know, even numbers. So we've got, usually a pylon sign will display the largest tenants in the biggest signs, which would be price right, as well as a new tenant that's looking to come in, Harbor Freight. So that's where you see the 40 and 15, and above it you see pictured in how it would look. The 6 panels you see underneath it, you are correct, there are only 5 tenants now. What we're doing with that extra space is it keeps the sign symmetrical rather than having one more sign bigger, throwing off the variance for one particular tenant. We've kept those all at a standard symmetrical size. And with that extra space that we're already getting the variance for, if the space does get subdivided by Mr. Sulo at all and they need the space for one more tenant, it's already approved and on the plan without having to go to the board looking for any other zoning variance.
I just have a follow-up question through the chair. So you have only the 7 tenants, just wanted to make sure I heard this correctly. The tenant coming in just has a larger space, that's why hence the larger sign needed in the variance would be created for that pylon sign, because their building sign is within the allowed building sign area, it looked like.
Correct,
And
their
if they-
building sign is, the pylon as a whole falls below based upon the frontage that the property has being cut down and whatnot.
So that 8th space is not necessarily needed, it's just that the tenant would like a larger sign.
No, so if you go back to the display, right now we're showing one of the spaces just saying for lease with a phone number. There's technically no space available. There's no other subdivided space there. Our option was to make another business larger or just keep the 6 smaller tenants all symmetrical in size. And having that extra space should, for example, one of the bigger spaces like the Price Chopper down the road get subdivided into 2, we'd already have that panel for 2 different tenants there.
So if Harbor Freight used that space, they wouldn't need the variance, but yet their request to use or you have it listed for that 15 square foot space, they need a 3-foot variance. Is that correct?
I'd have to do the math, because the smaller ones are only a 7 square foot size. So I think we'd still need the variance.
If I may, through the chair, this is Commissioner Doyle, and Chris, I think this is part of your question too, maybe not, but it says variance requested 37 square feet, right? And then the following page, which is the chart that didn't have the header, and you're talking about the building signs here, which is what Kristen's referring to with the Harbor Freight sign. It says, you know, if you add up all those numbers are greater than 37, right? You got 53, 9.5, 4.5. So is your application simply for the pylon sign this evening, which is a 37 square foot variance? And if so, do we need to address, or are you asking us to address the building sign variances, which are already up, as you said, you know, the laundromat sign's been up for a while. And yeah, I think that's the question. Is it 1 variance or 2?
So correct, Brittany, correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure. Right. It's for 2 variances.
It is, okay.
It's for the freestanding pylon side to have it be the size that they're requesting, and then also to allow for those various tenant spaces to go beyond what they are allowed for their signage size.
Okay, and I think, and this gets to Commissioner Levesque's question, if we split up one of the buildings that currently only needs a variance of 3, and now they want to say to themselves, well, gosh, you know, I need more than, I suppose, are we taking the existing, are we grandfathering, if some place has an existing sign, let's take Harbor Freight, which has an existing sign of 126. Are we grandfathering that 126 such that if Harbor Freight, for example, splits in two, each of those tenants will have to allocate amongst themselves the 126 on the building front because that space is grandfathered the 126?
You lost me.
Okay. Putting aside the
sorry,
pylon sign for a moment. Yeah, go ahead.
Commissioner
Chair.
DiMatteo. Brittany, if I understand it, is it if the store frontage size kind of dictates what's, I know they're two separate variances, but does it dictate for one another, like the
Yes,
sign
so-
out front, right? So
Right,
it's
and
sort of-
sorry if I didn't make this clear. So
Yeah.
each tenant space gets 2 feet per linear foot of their frontage of signage. That number that we get has to be divided between the storefront sign and the freestanding sign. So that's what you see in the chart. You see they chose to allocate a certain amount to the storefront and then a certain amount to the pylon, which makes
So if
it's
I'm
very
reading this,
complicated.
yeah, if I'm reading this chart correctly, Harbor Freight has linear frontage of 69.
Yep, so they have
Is that the second
138 square
largest?
feet of signage to work with.
Okay.
They're gonna request a building sign of 126 and a pylon sign of 15, which puts them over 3 square feet of what they're allowed to have for signage.
I have a quick question, Brittany. If we could go back to the pylon sign. I was just doing the math and kind of worked through the numbers, and math is not my strong suit, so don't laugh at me if I did it wrong. But I'm looking at the freestanding sign that's existing, and they're showing the 50 square feet for Price Right, 35 square feet for I see Shopping Spree and something else. They're showing an existing 18 square feet, which is a banner, which in my mind, I don't think that qualifies as sort of this is what's existing. There's a 16 square foot sign, which I think is laundromat, and then a 17 square foot, which I think is the Salvation Army, which is again a banner. So if I take out the 17 and the 18, it looks to me like they are at an existing permanent sign square footage of 101 square feet. If they're asking for 100 square feet, I guess I'm wondering, and if there's, and even if we go with what they're saying, which is we have 136, we want 100, why, what am I missing here?
You're on mute, Brittany.
You're on mute.
Thank you. So because of the legal nonconformity of the plaza and the freestanding sign, anytime a tenant wants to expand their sign, they, under our ordinances, they are not allowed to. They need a variance to do so. So the fact that one of the tenants, in this case, 3 of the tenants, want to expand their signage, it kind of kicks in the need for a variance for the whole plaza.
And so because there's building signage tied to what's going on with the pylon sign, even though the math is exactly the same, they're gonna,
Yep.
they're
And I
they're
think
going to, okay.
Right, and I think also it's good for the town to have it legalized, the pylon sign legalized, even though it is smaller in size. I think receiving the variance for it and having that on record will help the plaza, now and in the future for signage.
And you're on mute, Mr. Miller, you're on mute.
So just to jump in on that too, Mr. D'Amato, you're correct. It is smaller than what's there, like you said. But because it's non-conforming, that's why we had to bundle the whole thing together. Even though we're not really looking to change anything on the building, we needed to bring it to code in order to get the pylon to be conforming.
And in order for any tenant to expand their sign, they would need to, the variance needs to occur for the entire plaza.
even though, and this is Commissioner Doyle through the chair, even though ultimately they're reducing the size of the sign that's there now.
Right, right. They're reducing the size of from what's there, but it's still
Correct.
above
Yeah.
what they are allowed for the pylon sign.
Right, but they're reducing it, Brittany, but it's still non-conforming, but it is a smaller size, correct?
Correct.
So yeah, I guess what I'm trying to make sure of is that we are not unnecessarily issuing a variance where there's a reduction in the nonconformity, because that wouldn't be necessary, right? They could do that without a variance. They could
Right,
go
but the
from,
fact that it's all tied to the storefront signage as well, I think a variance is appropriate.
Any other questions from the commissioners?
This is
Great.
Carolyn. Borman, I have a quick question. So when I'm looking at this spreadsheet on page 7, I'm still quite confused about the total. The variance needed would be 70 if you add up that last column. And then the pylon would be 37. Is the 37, well, assuming that you had the 100 square feet, 37 that you would need additionals inclusive in that 70? Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just a little confused how we came up with these numbers here.
It's
The
a
last
little late
column.
for math. It's as you've heard, it's challenging because you're dealing with the size of the building, the size of the existing sign, the size of the frontage, and what's already in place. So that's why we're trying to seek the two variances in one versus having like the Doc's Medical, the Harbor Freight, and every tenant come and present a different variance. We thought if we brought it in one variance request, which is really
Okay.
two, one to update the pylon freestanding, and to bring the other ones to code. So again, the
Okay.
building signs are not being increased. As you notice, the proposed sign for Harbor Freight for the building is the same size that they're allowed. We're keeping it under the size requirements. Mr. Sulo, the owner of the building, has, since he's bought it, been working hard with the tenants to try to make sure that any new signage is conforming. But we're dealing with the fact that there's old signs and a small frontage, and then the hardship is people aren't being able to be seen from the storefront or from the street front, and they're dealing with these oversized signs and small frontage. And it was just easier to bring it into this one variance request to the town at the same time.
Okay. As opposed to itemized, I see the difference. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it's still itemized there, but versus hearing a different variance for every tenant for every allowance. And then, quite frankly, some of the tenants that have been there for years probably would have never come requesting a variance, and we're trying to bring it to code.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else? Members of the public were provided an opportunity to send comments via email and are welcome to continue sending comments to comment.tpz@westhartfordct.gov. Those comments will be distributed to the members of the board and also read into the record. For the record, the zoning officer will now read any names with submitted comments, concerns.
Chair, we received no comments for this application.
The public was also given an opportunity to call in. Robert, anybody on the line?
Mr. Chairman, there are those two lines from before. I can try and send them a request to unmute now. I'm not sure if they are here for this item.
Okay. Thank you.
So the first number with the 203 area code ending in 25. Again, that is *6 to unmute, and I will send you the request to unmute now.
Hi, this is Attorney Maria Salato, Salatto, and I am just here as legal representative to Docs.
Good evening.
I, of course, am in support of this variance.
Thank you. Next caller, Erica Foster.
Hi, everyone. I'm Erica Foster. I am an employee at Docs Medical Group. We are a current tenant at the plaza. As the current existing signage stands, we are unable to have signage on the pylon And as an urgent care center, it is very important to us that we have appropriate signage near the road so that ambulances are able to find our center in case of emergencies for our patients. So because of that, and because of our existing frontage signage being very far set back from the road, we legally, we need to make sure that there's a way for ambulances and first responders to find our location. So we are in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Robert, anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, I'll try that 860 number again. Perhaps they're here for this application. The last two digits are 75. Sending the request to unmute now. Not seeing a response.
Okay, great.
I think we can move forward.
Okay, if there aren't any more comments, we'll move on to the next applicant. Thank you, Mr. Miller, and everybody else for your application. As mentioned, we'll render a decision tonight after all the applicants have been heard. Brittany, would you read the next application?
Yes, and I just wanted to state that alternate Borman will be voting on this next application.
Thank you.
I will read the legal notice. Town of West Hartford Zoning Board of Appeals will hold its regular virtual meeting at 6:00 p.m. on Wednesday, March 16th, 2022. The public hearing and meeting will be conducted exclusively in a format in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act as amended by Public Act number 21-2, which authorizes municipalities to conduct public meetings virtually, and will convene at 6:00 p.m. as the matter may be heard on the following. Petition number 10-22, 96-98 South Quaker Lane. Petition of M. Kritzman, MHAC Homes, Inc., requesting variances to section 177-6E, standards for multifamily residence districts, requesting a plus or minus 26.1 side yard variance to the required 34-foot setback and a plus or minus 1.5% variance to the 20% lot coverage requirement to construct an addition at the rear of the home. At this hearing, interested persons may be heard or submit written communication as outlined below. The full application is available for public review by visiting the town's website and following the navigation path, Government tab, Boards and Commissions, Zoning Board of Appeals, Next Meeting and Agenda, or by email request to comment.tpz@westhartfordct.gov. Members of the public can view the meeting live on YouTube at youtube.be/HQ4FNFHCM0 or on West Hartford Community Television at hctv.org and YouTube/WHCTV5. The meeting is also being recorded for on-demand viewing and will be available on the town's website for at least 45 days. Any interested persons may participate in real time by calling 1-408-418-9388 and using the following access code: 2339-534-9908 at 6:00 p.m. Participants using caller ID blocking will not be permitted to participate. Participants will be called on in the order in which their call was received. When prompted by the chair and/or moderator, participants will have the permission to speak on matters germane to the hearing. Any interested persons may submit a written comment via email to comment.tpz@westhartfordct.gov or via mail attention Town Plan and Zoning Office, Room 214, Town Hall, 50 South Main Street, West Hartford CT 06107. Written comments will be made part of the record at the March 16th public hearing and posted on the town's website. In order to be included as part of the record, comments must meet the following requirements. Comments must be received no later than 3:30 p.m. on March 16th. The subject of the email shall be application number and address, ZBA March 16th public hearing. The body of the email must begin with the interested person's full name and street address. Comments must be germane to the application and no longer than 500 words. And for the record, a sign has been posted at the property and abutter letters were mailed to the director of abutters of the property.
Thank you, Brittany. As mentioned, the public was provided an opportunity to submit written comments on the application via mail, email. Any comments received have been published on the town's website as a PDF and are embedded in the online agenda. With that, will the applicant proceed with the presentation?
Yes, my name is Mark Kritzman. I'm the facilities manager for Mental Health Connecticut, which is a statewide organization serving people with mental health issues. We have a facility here in West Hartford on South Quaker, and our desire is to build a small room in the back of the existing structure. And in order to do that, we are requesting a variance pertaining to side yard setback and also minimum required lot area. I should have said thank you for hearing our request for a variance. The variance is for a 10 by 13 foot room in the back of the building, and it will not be visible from the front of the building. In fact, it will have less. It will be less close to the sideline than the existing building is right now. The other thing that I wanted to say, just give a little bit of insight about why we're requesting or why we desire to build this building, is just to add a little bit of additional space to the building, which will allow the occupants there to have a little bit more privacy for conversations or sort of one-on-one conversations, which really is difficult in the building as it exists right now. I did want to point out, and we included it in our application, that the variance that we're requesting is consistent with other variances that have been granted over the years for properties nearby in the same zone, and in fact, on the same street. So I added the 3 that we could locate that pertain to side yard or I should say minimum lot. So I guess at this point I'll ask if there are any particular questions that I can answer for the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chrisman. Brittany, given the lot size, the dimensions of this variance, it dictates which way they go out. Is that my understanding it?
Right, so for this zone, the side yard setbacks are based on the height of the home and the rear yard. So the height is, I believe, 28 feet, which would make the side yard setbacks 28 feet for this property.
And looking at the past variances that were approved by this board, 106 South Quaker, 89 South Quaker, they were all the same variance request for the most part, right? Same section of the.
Are you asking me?
I'm sorry, I was referring to Brittany. Sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Mr. Chrisman.
For the most part, yes, I believe they had to do with side yard setbacks.
Yes.
And rear yards for some of them.
And then just my last question, Mr. Chrisman, there isn't a door or entry point from behind. You're only entering that expanded building addition through within the house, the interior.
That's correct. Okay. That is correct.
Commissioners, any questions or concerns that you have?
Through the chair,
Yes,
this is
sir.
Commissioner Doyle. A question for Brittany. Brittany, given the rules for these types of structures, the proposed addition is a 1-story addition. If the owners or future owners wanted to bring that up a 2nd story, would that require another variance?
It would require variance. So we
It would,
are
okay.
approving this plan with this variance. So any changes to it they would have to come back to the board for approval.
Okay, yeah, my question is just, hey, if you increase the footprint, does that give you clearance to go up Or is it because, oh, no, it wouldn't because you still have the 28-foot. Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Doyle. Commissioners, any other questions, concerns? Hearing none. Members of the public were provided an opportunity to send comments via email and are welcome to continue sending comments to comment.tpz@westhartfordct.gov. Those comments will be distributed to the members of the board and also read into the record. For the record, Brittany, are there any letters submitted, written comments?
We did not receive any written comments.
Robert, anybody on the line?
I do not see any new call-ins.
Okay. All right. Well, with that said, the public portion of the meeting is closed. Unless anybody has any comments or questions, does anyone want to make a motion to grant petition 0822 with conditions?
This is Commissioner Doyle, so moved.
Second, anybody?
Second,
Who is that?
Mike D'Amato.
Thank you, Mr. D'Amato. Yeah, I'd like to hear your thoughts, commissioners, what you think. Sounds like they did a lot of effort there for this. They went to, what was it, 50 homes, right, for Brookside? There wasn't really a lot of concern from the neighbors, right, Brittany? We don't have anybody opposing this petition.
Correct. I didn't receive any opposition letters or calls.
These are great events, and Junior League has always been a good neighbor, a good community member. My inclination, I appreciated your suggestion, Angelo, which was to have as a condition the town added as a named insured on the policy, and
Yep.
I think with that, you had mentioned earlier, hey, let's talk to our corporation counsel for buy-in. I think if we do that, correct me if I'm wrong, Brittany, but if we do that, we would need to hold off on approval till the next meeting.
Right, but I think our corporation counsel would be in agreement with any indemnification.
Yeah, no, I agree. So what I would propose is we take the proposed conditions, add the additional condition about the named insured, and I don't think with that there's need to consult with corporation counsel because I think we're on kind of a tight timeline for these folks, right? They've got to get their show underway and things need to get going. So I would rather not have to do anything that requires us to wait till the next meeting.
Okay, so we'd have to amend the motion. The maker of the motion would have to amend to include the town being added to the insurance policy and having an indemnification agreement.
That is the indemnification, I think, right?
Yeah,
If
I'd
we're
like that.
added,
Yeah, indemnification, it basically is adding the town as an additional insured.
Got it. Okay.
Holding the town harmless.
Okay.
and I would like to include that item in my motion as a further condition.
Okay.
I just had a thought, because it's a shame that they have to go through the variance process for a special event that happens for a couple of weeks. But could we add the language, or is it, if deemed necessary by the town's corporation counsel, the applicant shall do that? I don't want to put them in a position where we're saying they need to do something that the corp counsel changes their mind on. I mean, maybe I'm thinking too hard about it, but they just,
No, I think the corporation counsel is in agreement and is okay with the indemnification.
Okay.
Dealing with municipalities, I would agree with you, Brittany.
And besides, I think it's this board's call, right? We can choose to consult corporation counsel, but I think the variance has come before us.
Yeah, I mean, they went to the West Hartford PD, they went to the town engineers, and they didn't really have any concerns, and they took their advice on parking, and And also, I didn't even think of any emergency vehicles going through that area. So does anyone else have any concerns or any questions?
I think Mike just has to second Todd's motion
Yes.
for the amendment.
Oh, thank you,
second.
Commissioner
Thanks, Mike.
Johnson.
I'll second the amended motion.
Thank you, Commissioner D'Amato. Hearing no other concerns, Ms. McGillicuddy, please call the roll.
Michael D'Amato,
Yes.
Todd Doyle,
Yes.
Angelo Di Matteo,
Yes.
Michael Johnson,
Yes.
and Carolyn Borman.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Good luck, folks. Thank you. Okay, I move to make a motion to approve 0522 in Britton Ave. Anybody want a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. It
It
sounds
was
like
confusing, but once we got it down, I'm like,
Right.
oh, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
The signs in the back are too big, especially the laundromat sign. We're actually shrinking the sign in front, but they need it. It makes sense. Once I understood, yeah.
And I drove there and looked at this. I mean, what they're proposing is actually it's gonna look a lot better. And
You know, we won't have the Salvation Army sign flapping in the breeze and everything. Yeah, this is
yeah, no, it'll look good. And I didn't realize there was an urgent care center there either, so that's also helpful to the community.
Agree. My 2 cents, Mr. Chair, it sounds like the other tenants are also very enthusiastic about updating the variances and kind of modifying all this at once. So yeah, sounds like a good application.
So I'm with you. Anybody else? Anybody want to comment? Are we good? Hearing none. Brittany, will you please call the roll?
Michael D'Amato,
Yes.
Todd Doyle,
yes.
Angelo Di Matteo,
Yes.
Michael Johnson,
Yes.
and Kristen Levesque.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Great, thank you. Next applicant is application 10-22. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Make a motion for approval of 10-22.
Yes.
Second, Commissioner Doyle.
It's Mr. Johnson and Mr. Doyle. Thank you. I don't know what you guys think. There's 3 other variances very similar to what was presented tonight. So I don't know if you guys have concerns or any questions for Brittany or.
I'll say it out loud. All of these multifamilies have the same problem, right? On the other hand, gee, I don't really see a hardship. And by the way, those others were approved, 20 years ago. But I just think they don't have anywhere to go. It's a small addition. And this is one of those things, Commissioner Johnson, you've said in the past, there are some zoning rules that we should approach the town about revisiting because it just hand ties people too much. But all of that being said, I'm inclined to approve this one.
Thanks, Commissioner Doyle. I completely agree. And the sentiments haven't changed, especially for this very unique neighborhood. I think that you're very fixed with what you can build out with the setback requirement. So would be looking forward to working with folks on that on council in the future. But I think, yeah, for tonight, I definitely am in support of the variance.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have no questions. Yeah, I'm good.
Thank you. Hearing none. Brittany, would you please call the roll?
Michael D'Amato,
Yes.
Todd Doyle,
Yes.
Angelo Di Matteo,
Yes.
Michael Johnson,
Yes.
and Carolyn Borman.
Yes.
That
Thank
passes unanimously.
Okay, so we just need to approve the minutes. Did any of you had a chance that were at the last meeting, take a look at the minutes? Yes, no, maybe?
I wasn't at the meeting, so I will have to
Right, we
abstain.
only have, I think we only have Angelo and Michael Johnson here that can.
Can
that
we,
can vote.
so can the two of us just,
I don't
we have
think
to wait
so.
for,
Yeah,
we
let's,
need-
I
okay,
think we should continue the minutes to next
okay,
meeting.
great.
Do we
So-
need a motion to do that, Brittany, or can we?
Yeah, I would make a motion.
Okay,
please.
make a motion to carry the February minutes to April's meeting.
Anybody want to second that?
I'll second
I'll
that.
second it. Oh,
Thank you, guys.
Carolyn. Okay, Mike D'Amato,
Yes.
Todd Doyle.
What am I doing?
Do we need, do those who,
I don't think we need to, do we need to
we
do
don't,
that?
okay, we don't need a
I don't
roll
think we-
call?
Yeah, 'cause they have
Yeah,
to
I don't
abstain
think, I
anyway.
don't think so. Okay.
Okay,
All right, great. So I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
correct.
All right, and then I don't really need to take a vote or a roll call. So
Right.
thank
If
you,
anyone
everybody.
objects.
This was a little tough tonight, but
Yeah, it's a good one. Good work, Angelo.
yeah, and
great
Brittany
job.
was very helpful. I drove Brittany crazy. I called her at least a dozen times. But I think I talked to a few of you. If you guys want to go out for a drink, since we're in person next month, let's do it if you're up for it after our next hearing. So,
Absolutely.
all
Fair
right,
enough.
Brittany, I don't
All
know if
right.
that's allowed on town, webinar
You can
here.
go off property.
And you're
And you
more than
can't
welcome to
discuss
come.
any of this.
You'll dock
See
our
you guys
penalty
later.
if we
Good night.
don't.
Have a great
Right,
night.
yeah, we can't talk about anything.
No town
That's
business.
right. All right. Go Huskies. See ya.
Bye.
Take care, guys.
All right, guys.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.
bye.